Hey everyone, it's me, Pashtan Bogat. I'm actually doing this video about the Moabite stone and the Mesha Stele. But before we get into it, I just hope that you guys like my t-shirt. I know I introduced it, a while back. It's my Satan Loves You t-shirt with Jesus holding the goat. I thought it was actually really good merch when I bought it from the website. I forget the name of it. I know my previous video I actually mentioned it. You can go check that out, and you can see where I've gotten that information from the website, and see if you can pick it up yourself. Now, I thought that aside from the merch when it comes to satanic material, um, when it comes to the Moabite stone, that really does influence me a lot. And the reason being is that when I look at how Satan has been maligned for many centuries, and how Christians, Muslims, those a part of Judaism, they don't really do their own research on where Yahweh come from. Like, for example, did you know that Yahweh had a wife way before Christianity got a hold of Yahweh, or even the Jews themselves had made Yahweh their national God? Like, for example, if you do research, and I'm going to show you, well, we can't see because of the glare, even Wikipedia and other sources back this up. And that's the point of me showing you my phone, that I'm not just saying it off the top of my head. I rather give you incite the sites, the websites that I get the information on, so that you can look at it, cross-reference, back-check what I'm saying, so I'm not just talking out of my head here, right? So his wife is reported to be the name Asherah. And it says here from Wikipedia, some biblical scholars believe that Asherah at one time was worshipped as the consort of Yahweh, the national God of Israel. And I find that to be interesting because there's been plentiful of websites, like I mentioned earlier, that actually support that. And I found that to be so inviting, in a sense where these people, these three major religions, point their fingers at each other, saying how they have the one and only true God, and they go to war. And if, depending on which holy scriptures you read, they point their fingers at these pagan cities that surround them, that do the same thing that they themselves used to do. Now, I get it. For them to get away from what is pagan, even in ancient times, or what's considered pagan and demonized, it's one thing, but it's another when you used to do it and you still do it. You see, it's like, even when you think about how the Moabite stone in this situation, which we're going to talk about now, it carries that same flavor, where it's like it connects lovely with the Bible as far as information. But of course, it raises my eyebrow because, of course, these major countries always write down their history of them winning and not losing. And as you go deeper into this video, you realize the information that I read straight from this website, and again, the website is called Ancient History Encyclopedia.com. I have to tell you, it's surprising, because the Bible says one thing about how things went down, and then the Moabite stone says another. Now, I'm not to say which side is right and wrong, because I obviously didn't live at that time. Just the same as, and this is me being fair, me being on camera and talking about spirituality, about the left-hand path and Satan and all, to be fair, I'm no different than someone who is a Christian that loves their God. And the reason being is that I can't tell anyone what to believe in and what not to believe in. That's really up to you. After all, having this Baphomet statue in front of me represent my belief system and what how I'm able to live my life and how I go about doing matters. I'm structured in that way, and I'm no different than someone who is of the three major religions. And yes, I'm able to look at my own belief system, and I realize what I need to work on. And if I feel that I need to be corrected, that I would receive correction, either it be from a comment, either it be from, let's say, even the deities themselves, because I'm obviously not perfect. Now, I've gotten that out the way because I don't want people thinking that I'm bashing, but I'm only going by what facts are. And that's what I like about this website, amongst many other websites that I've actually been on, because they were unbiased, they weren't satanic, they weren't Christian, they wasn't Muslim, they wasn't from Judaism. These websites are quoting scholars who are historians, and historians are focusing on that one aspect, history. In other words, when you think about Bert Ehrman, who's a very famous biblical scholar who is an agnostic atheist, even with his belief system, his set of sub beliefs, he doesn't allow that to get in the way of being a historian. And his famous quotation that I love is how historians are not focused or concerned of what the biblical Jesus represents, or what a theologian, I can't pronounce the word, it's the individual that studies the Bible, you get what I'm trying to say. That's their job. They're focused on looking at the certain writers of the Bible, either it be the Jewish group who are the scribes that write the particular scripture within the Bible, or it may be the priestly class that may write an aspect of the Bible. See, that's what they're most concerned with when it comes to how they're going to bring about the, I guess, the miracles and how things are statured in that kind of way. Whereas a historian is not focused on that. He's focusing on how the environment, either it be the architect of it, the land, how the people live, those type of facts is what he's focused on. And that's what we're doing today. We're looking at something that is unbiased. We're not talking about miracles, we're not talking about walking on water, or we're talking about facts that can be tomorrow gone and misplaced as a replaced truth. And I'm going to be honest with you, so let's get into it. Okay, I want to put that out there as an introduction so that we know that I'm not just bashing. I'm trying to really give the information the way it should be said. Okay, so the Moabite stone, this is me reading from the Bible. I said the Bible, I'm sorry, from the website here, the ancient let me see here, Ancient History Encyclopedia. Okay, it says here that the Moabite stone, otherwise known as the Mesha Stele, contains an ancient inscription by Mesha, king of Moab, during the late 19th century BCE, elements of which match events in the Hebrew Bible. And it says here that the inscription describes two aspects of how Mesha led Moab into victory against ancient Israel. First, it claims that he defeated ancient Israel and captured his cities, or Israel cities, and then two, it claims that he had reconstructed and repaired many cities and buildings and things of that nature. But then the final part of the paragraph says that unfortunately the last 5 lines of the inscription are broken, so the scholars are unsure exactly how the Moabite stone ends. And then it simply says that what follows subsequently is a brief summary of the Moabite stone along with a full translation. And that will, I won't read too much of it because it's pretty damn long, but I'll definitely give us a little bit of a summary of it so that we can get a better idea of what that is a little bit later on in the video. But here's another part under the topic of discovery. It says the Moabite stone was discovered in 1868 CE. And that's actually really interesting because that means centuries, obviously, when the Moabite stone was pretty much undiscovered. It was pretty much discovered by, and I'm going to botch this name, or actually city within the region here. and it says I believe it's Dibon, Dhiban, and again, I murdered it. I do apologize, but amongst a time in which scholars sought for any inscriptions and other proofs for the historicity of the Bible. And then it notes a scholar, Charles Clement, and again, I'm going to butcher it, Ganneau, Ganneau, and he heard that the missionary F.A. Klein had discovered a large stone with writing and daiba. So that's just a quick tidbit of the discovery of that particular stone and how they were able to, find it, decipher what's going on. But of course, 5 lines of that Moabite stone had been damaged, and then later on in that description, it speaks about in that particular time when it was discovered, there was something going on in that particular village, like some sort of debacle, and it fragmented, and before the information was lost, the scholars, the people there, done something very interesting. They've taken paper, put it over the stone, and they did something whereas the writing that was on the stone appeared on the paper. They kind of pressed on it. They did whatever they had to save the information on that particular stone so that they could basically keep the information. And I thought that was really interesting because the information goes on in summary that perhaps the natives there did that in such a way to as a insurrection against the government or some sort of debacle. But that was something that I thought was interesting. But now let's go further. Let's go into the summary of the Moabite stone. Okay, it says the Moabite stone is written in the first person, the speaker being Mesha, who is the king of Moab. And again, I'm sorry if I'm botching and I'm murdering. I'm trying here. And it says Mesha ruled from about 850 BCE, 850 BCE until the late 19th century BCE. Moab was located east of ancient Israel and Judah across the Dead Sea. So it's giving us a little bit of where it was located, the region, and the king's name. Hence, it's called the Mesha Stele, or the Moabite stones, based off of him. But I want to get into what it has within that Moabite stone. Like, in short, I'm going to read just a portion of it. What's written on the stone. It says, because he, and this is the beginning of the quote, it says, because he, that's Chemosh, the Moabite deity, was written as Chemos, delivered me from all assaults, and because he let me see my desire upon all my adversaries, end of quote. And that's Mesha, who is speaking here, and that line was found on the Mesha stone. And that's an introduction of what that Mesha stone is all about. And obviously the adversaries was the king of Israel that they're speaking of. Now I'm going to jump ahead and I'm going to get to the point so this doesn't become like a long drawn out video, okay? Hold on for 1 second. Now here's the part that I thought that you should pay attention to, where it says that Mesha demonstrated his success in the region by subordinating deities and religious materials foreign to Moab before Chemosh. And this is the quote, beginning of quote, I took from thence the vessels of Yahweh and dragged them before Chemosh, end of quote. Rather than just defeat a nation through reclaiming their cities and killing inhabitants, Mesha confirmed his success by bringing Yahweh's religious items before Chemosh. In doing so, Mesha ritually subordinated Chemosh, or subordinated Yahweh to Chemosh. Such an action illustrates how his attempt to establish political rule over ancient Israel was accomplished through means of subordinating the primary deity of ancient Israel to the primary deity of Moab. Now, I thought that was interesting because this is not the only source that describes how Yahweh was a subordinate deity to other primary deities of different cultures. And when you look at that information, it's not to be taken lightly. First of all, I'm going to say that I'm not using that information to prove my point on why I feel that Yahweh is evil of some sorts. Sharing that information to you, see, my motive in doing that is helping you to appreciate that when we think about history and we think about how things really went down, and mind you, when I say really went down, we want to look at that in an unbiased way, because history itself, in conclusion, we want to take it with a grain of salt, long story short, because they're going to give you their own side of the story. Hence, that's why I said from the outset that the Moabite stone speaks of this Yahweh as being a subordinate deity to the main deity, Chemosh, whereas the Bible paints a different story on its victim. So, when we really gather all the information, the Moabite stone with other historical belief systems, like we think about the Canaanite belief system of El. Yahweh was also a subordinate deity there. You know what I mean? And when we think about how other cultures saw Yahweh as a subordinate deity and not a main deity. Hell, Israel didn't even have Yahweh as a main deity, because they've taken Yahweh from yet another culture and made them, their main, Israel's main deity. And that's not a problem still. I'm just saying that when we look at the original idea of where Yahweh he came from, he didn't come from as being this omniscient, all-knowing, powerful, omnibenevolent God. He's been this subordinate deity. Either he was made one, he was already, and he's been going around to each and every tribe throughout that region, and then made later on to be some all-knowing, powerful being. Because in the beginning, if he never was an all-powerful being, then it's one of those things where I said in my other videos, I don't have to worship something that is by definition popular. And that's my point. See, I cannot argue with the fact that he is popular. I can't argue with the facts that 3 major religions see him as the main God and omniscient. My defense and what I argue is, look at where he originated from. When you think about the Canaanite religion, though we're briefly going a bit, I guess, in time backwards when it comes from the Moabite stone and then now to Canaanite religion, which I'm going to make a video about that too, but that within itself is telling, because again, he was a subordinate demon, a subordinate god, and you know what, I might as well just say demon too, because if you think about how for centuries Yahweh and those who follow always demonize El and Astaroth and all these other beings, well then, where did you come from? It's like you came from the same source as every other deity that you basically just demonized. The only thing that made you different and separate from all of them is only because you're popular. And that's my point of bringing out the Moabite stone. See, it goes both ways. History is going to talk about their victories, like I said before. And you should see that in an unbiased way. You should be open for interpretation, be open to even reconsider what you find to be a basis for facts, because some other scholar could bring up something else, and then what you have currently could be yesterday's news, and you have to be open to yet another idea that can be potential to being the fact itself, until we have a more stable belief system. And that's what this point of this video is all about. Again, it's not talking shit, it's not about changing one's faith, it's looking at our belief system and really looking at it in such a way where, again, and in conclusion, we look at the origins of it. Do we know where Yahweh came from? And if it came from the same bloodline, if you will, if I can use that loosely, if we come from the same bloodline as every other deity that he so proclaimed as being evil, and Moabite stones, and all this rich and beautiful history, like again I said in the opening that Yahweh had a wife. I mean, it's like if the Israelites believed in that, you know, I can't believe that, and that's why I can't wait to talk about my next video about the Canaanite religion. Because when El had his consort or his wife, so that Yahweh had his wife in the Canaanite religion, and the Israelites were a-okay with that. In fact, it's found in the Bible where it speaks about how the Most High, which is not Yahweh but it's El, and he's given each deity or each god their inheritance or their lot. And it says that to Yahweh he's going to have I believe Israel, and they're going to be his people. You get what I'm trying to say? And that right there goes to show that Yahweh is not the main deity. He's just a subordinate deity, where El is really giving all the shots. He's calling the shots, but he just became popular, fused with El, and now everyone worships him. But yet, all I could do is focus on what we are able to look at the facts, which is today's facts, and follow that, and not follow what's popular. So guys, I'm sorry if I was all over the place with my thoughts. It's just that this information is just so exciting for me, and I have to tell you, it has taken me 5 times to redo this video, and no matter how many times I redo this, it's always the same thing. My mind just puts out all this information at once, and I'm just ecstatic about it, and I hope you feel the same way. And like I said, in my next video, we're going to talk about the Canaanite religion, where Yahweh came from, and then even before that, potentially he came from another nomad group, and that's also interesting, and that also gives evidence on where the Israelites may have taken him from, and then somehow made it to the Canaanite religion. And then we'll also talk briefly about Yahweh and his consort, or his wife. Okay, I love you all. Please subscribe, and please click that bell icon so that we could be updated in our videos. I love you all. Have a good one. See you soon.